Following Zeus's orders, Prometheus fashioned humans and animals. When Zeus saw that the animals far outnumbered the humans, he ordered Prometheus to reduce the number of animals by turning them into people. Prometheus did as he was told, and as a result those people who were originally animals have a human body but the soul of an animal. I'm usually saving the present day events for a later video, but I do want to talk about the one directly preceding Laka. The haven is, as the name suggests, a safe haven, not for humans but for monsters, creatures who have nowhere else to go. This puts them into a weird place as a misunderstood, persecuted minority in this otherwise monsterless world. Humanity still has a meaning though. They actively want to relinquish their monsterhood and become humans. What would this matter if monsters were the same? So are they changing their own bodies in order to avoid prejudice? There's another layer to this with the demon lord having influence over monsters, so this could potentially just be seen as religious conversion. So when Maeve gets consumed by hatred, she turns into a monster, or when a monster learns the errors of their way and tries to better themselves and fit into society, it makes them turn into a human. The outside, just like with the NPC designs, conveys the inner workings and maybe simply the mental state. Monsters are associated with the irrational and bad, usually driven by negative emotions. We'll get back to this, it's just that I can't get through this episode without discussing Dragon Quest VII's understanding of a soul in slightly greater detail, and this is going to tie into that. In the town you visit, all of the animals were turned into humans and the humans were turned into either pets or cattle. This makes this a reversal of roles for the animals that humans have a previously established form of dynamic with. The horse is now in the body of an old man and the old man is in the body of a horse. This goes for all of the NPCs except for one. A mythical silver wolf, currently nameless, soon to be Ruff, who was also turned into a boy. There is no boy that was turned into a wolf however. In short, these are both him. The boy and the wolf are both authentically his own body. You have a guy that can talk to animals with you and he can piece together the lore of the village. Silver wolves used to be the sacred protectors of the town. Then a couple of years ago there was a strong monster that they almost all died against, but not before sealing him into a coffin. The only survivor being Ruff's pregnant mom. She still gave birth to him but died immediately afterwards. He was then later raised by a regular non-mythical wolf. Then Orgodimir came around, undid the seal, and now the monster is back and turned humans into animals and animals into humans. So you seal it again, but it curses Ruff to not revert. Everyone else goes back to how they used to be. Afterwards the woodcutter offers to raise Ruff among his other animals. Ruff declines, partly because he wants to render Orgodimir harmless since he indirectly wiped out his entire species, but more importantly because he wants to keep adventuring with you. He prefers the company of other humans to the company of animals. So Laka appears in the present. The town itself is nothing special. They now have a festival where they pretend to be animals, which I find pretty cute. Animals in Dragon Quest VII have reason. This is of course a common trope in fairy tales and fables, which this game has a very similar vibe to. Either way, the festival can be seen as a sort of celebration of animal culture, if you can call it that. Animals are equal to monsters and humans, so the only difference is that they look different and can communicate, and they act just as close to their nature as, for example, NPC archetypes. Any soldier will act as you expect him to. Any old magician will be just that. There are small nuances, but the same goes for the animals. For the most part, a dog will act like a dog. He will still have an owner, but an owner to pet dynamic is not presented differently from interpersonal dynamics. And acting as a dog versus acting as a default NPC type is treated the same in Dragon Quest VII. Humans also have a nature to them and they need an alt-trait savvy to change that. So when you investigate the coffin that you sealed the monster in, you find out that the monster itself turned into a human. It's unhappy about its state, reflects on its actions and offers to return Ruff to his natural state. In response, Ruff refuses to be turned back and even starts acting more like a human, or at least now he speaks like one. So why do the two have such a different response to being turned to a human? Why is one broken by it, while Ruff gives up his true self, and given how he's the last of the white wolves, he gives up his entire species and he's only excited about it. Lycanthropy is seen as a disease. A human turning into a wolf is seen as bad. But this doesn't automatically mean a wolf turning into a human would be good. This does, however, serve as an example of wolves and humans being closely related. We use metaphors like the two wolves inside us. It's not that far-fetched of a change. And while humans and monsters also change into one another, the connotation is different. I think it comes down to Ruff not being raised by his kind, or much at all, so only for a few years, and by a grey wolf and humans alike. He never even met one of his kind and spent a significant-ish amount of his total lifespan as a human. This is still his body even if it was transformed. He didn't get someone else's body instead. This is still him. I think it's fair to say that he's in equal parts wolf and human, and unlike the monsters, he didn't lose himself, but instead, being a human is now also part of him. Lastly, staying as a human among other humans is the closest thing he'll ever have to a pack. So this is the best compromise between his identity as a wolf and as a human. Either way, what exactly animals and monsters are in the Dragon Quest VII world is ambiguous. This question is interesting, however, because animals are presented as just as smart as humans, if not smarter. Animals in the form of humans are still able to communicate as an animal would. A human in the form of an animal, however, cannot communicate as a human would. You can't understand the humans turned animals, but a guy that understands animals can understand animals turned human. The same goes for monsters, even if some humans turned monsters like Maeve are still able to communicate. So you might remember the short section about what exactly monsters are in the Dragon Quest world from my video on Ballymolloy. I think I'm able to more precisely explain that now. Specifically for all entities in Dragon Quest VII. They have a divine spark, as in divine spark from the Gnostic tradition. Or to explain Gnosticism really quick, a portion of God that resides within them. And some of the monsters happen to awaken it, either through genius or through a teacher. Some monsters have a larger divine spark, and the same goes for some animals like the mystic silver wolves. I will make a much more thorough analysis about the reading of Dragon Quest VII as a Gnostic anthology at a later date, but for now, to explain Gnosticism, I'd summarize Dragon Quest VII's world as one that matches the Gnostic worldview. So if you didn't know what that entails, as one with a flawed god responsible for creating the material world, and the mystic as a way of reaching into different realms in order to, through diligence and effort, gain knowledge beyond what the majority of mankind will possess. There's a lot more to it, so I do think Gnosticism is worth bringing up in this discussion, despite the term being esoteric. To me, it's the easiest way to explain the human-like reason of different beings when the term soul is no longer sufficient. The conclusion for now is that even monsters have a human or a free-thinking mind at their core, that can be revealed as we'll keep seeing throughout the game. Monsters aren't equatable with a natural disaster. They have their own ambitions, even if those are evil. They have a divine spark, soul, ego, whatever you want to call it. Even if it's more pronounced in some than others. Next time, however, we'll talk about a possibly soulless threat that can be equated with a natural disaster.